For 2 years, I had no idea how much time could feel like both my ally and my enemy. With each passing minute, it brought me one step closer to guaranteeing my son's future, but also served as a continual reminder of how much work was still left to do. I remember Noah's birthday like it was yesterday. The nurses wrapped him in a soft blue blanket before placing him in my arms. He was a gorgeous little bundle with dark, inquisitive eyes that looked up at me as if he was trying to memorize my face. He had his mother's lips, my nose, and a tiny, delicate body that I vowed to protect no matter what. But life has a cruel sense of humor. It wasn't long before I realized that something wasn't quite right. Noah wasn't reaching his milestones. He struggled to crawl, was late to sit up, and when other toddlers took their first shaky steps, he was still on his hands and knees, his tiny face filled with frustration. Then came the diagnosis. I remember sitting in that cold, antiseptic doctor's office, gripping the arms of my chair as the specialist explained Noah's congenital condition. It wasn't life-threatening, but it would make life incredibly difficult. Without surgery, Noah would struggle to walk normally. He would always be the child left behind. Surgery could fix his condition, but when they told me the cost, $112,000, my breath caught in my throat. At the time, I was working in a factory. My wages were barely enough to cover our basic needs, let alone six-figure medical expenses. I had no savings, no wealth, just my willpower. And that day, as I sat in that office with Noah curled in my lap, his tiny hands gripping my shirt, I knew I had to fight for him. The grind began immediately. I cut back on everything. No eating out, no unnecessary spending. Every extra dollar went straight into a separate savings account. I picked up more shifts, arriving early and leaving late. When that wasn't enough, I took on a second job loading and unloading trucks on weekends. The exhaustion was brutal. There were nights I barely made it to the shower before collapsing into bed. Some nights, I didn't even get that far, falling asleep at the dinner table, my head resting on my arm. But I didn't care, because every shift, every sacrifice brought Noah one step closer to walking. Checking the savings account became our little ritual. Once a week, I'd open the banking app. Noah would climb onto my lap, staring at the numbers with wide eyes. "Is it enough, Daddy?" he'd ask. "Not yet, buddy," I'd say, kissing the top of his head. And every time, he would simply nod. No complaints. No tantrums. Just patience. I was in awe of him. But some nights, the doubt crept in. I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was doing enough, wondering if the money would be ready before Noah outgrew the window for the best surgical outcome. Then I'd remember the look in his eyes, the way his tiny fists clenched when he watched other kids play soccer at the park. "I wish I could run like that," he once whispered. And I swore to him, "You will? I promise." That promise kept me going. I didn't tell Olivia, my wife, about my struggles. She knew about the surgery, of course, but she never asked about the specifics. Every time I tried to talk about the money, she'd wave it off. "You worry too much, Mason." But I had to worry. While I was scraping by, selling my car, skipping lunch, taking public transport, Olivia was spending money on spa days, designer clothes, and weekend getaways with her friends. Still, I pushed on, and then we reached it, $100,000. The hospital had already set a tentative date for the surgery. Noah was ecstatic, crossing off the days on his little calendar. Each check bringing him closer to a future where he could run and play like any other child. I should have seen the warning signs. Lately, Olivia had been asking more questions about the money. At first, I thought she was just taking an interest, realizing how hard I had worked to secure our son's future. "What's the balance now?" she'd ask. "Are there payment plans?" I answered without hesitation. Why would I suspect anything? She was his mother. Then everything unraveled. It was a normal day. I was on my lunch break, logging into my account to transfer a small amount for bills. Nothing out of the ordinary. Until I saw it. The account was empty. At first, I thought it was an error, a glitch. I refreshed the page, closed the app, opened it again. Zero. My hand started shaking as I scrolled through the transactions. The withdrawals had started small, $200 here, $500 there. Then they got reckless. $25,000, $35,000, $47,500. Everything. Gone. A cold dread settled in my stomach. I called the bank immediately. Sir, these transactions were made from an authorized device. What do you mean authorized? The moment they told me the transfers came from an IP address registered to my home, my blood ran cold. I hung up and called Olivia. No answer. I texted. Nothing. Then my phone vibrated with a notification, an Instagram story. I clicked on it. The first clip, champagne glasses clinking together. The caption, Paris Nights. I scrolled. A luxury hotel suite, a marble bathtub, designer shopping bags. And then the gut punch. Olivia, lounging in an airport lounge, sunglasses perched on her nose, a Louis Vuitton bag in her lap. $5,000. 2 years of hard work, gone in an instant. My son's future, stolen. The next clip, Olivia on a first-class flight, sipping champagne. The caption, living my best life. I don't remember getting home. I don't remember the confrontation that didn't happen. I only remember staring at Noah, playing happily with his toys, unaware that everything had just fallen apart. I wanted to scream, to break something, but I had to stay calm. Then Noah walked up to me, holding a tiny keychain, a miniature Eiffel Tower. Mommy gave me this last week, he said, tilting his head. It looks like where she is now. My stomach dropped. She had planned this for weeks. She stole my son's future. She took everything I worked for and thought she could just walk away. No, she was going to learn exactly how wrong she was. Claire leaned back in her chair, exhaling slowly. This isn't going to be easy, she said. I tensed, bracing for the worst. Instead, she smirked. Olivia's going to fight hard. She'll stretch this out, claim the money was a marital asset. She'll refuse to comply, delay the proceedings. I clenched my jaw. So what do we do? Her smirk widened. We make her life miserable until she pays. That afternoon, Claire and I started working. We compiled every transaction, every Instagram post where Olivia bragged about spending my money. We gathered witness statements, people she had boasted to. By nightfall, we had a strong case. I filed a complaint that night. At midnight, the call came. I let it ring, staring at the screen. Then I answered. You sued me. Olivia's voice was thick with disbelief. You actually filed a lawsuit against me? She laughed bitterly. You're crazy. I stayed silent. Say something, she snapped. I smiled. I just stopped letting you win. Silence. For the first time, she had no comeback, no excuse, no manipulation. She finally realized she was going to lose. The problem with family is that you think you know where everyone stands until something goes wrong. I always believed my family would act morally, that we would all agree when something terrible was done. But when Olivia stole $122,000 from our son, I retaliated, and soon I learned the truth. Sometimes family isn't about blood. It's about who truly stand by you. The day after Olivia's death, I got a call from her mother. That was my first clue. Not everyone was on my side. Mason's voice came through the line. I know you're upset, she sighed. I cut her off, my voice cold. There's nothing to talk about. She made a mistake. I laughed bitterly. A mistake? Forgetting an anniversary is a mistake. Backing into a car in a parking lot is a mistake. Olivia didn't mess up. She planned this. She drained that account for weeks, knowing she was stealing from our son, looking into his eyes every day, knowing she was taking away his future. Her mother jumped in. Let's figure something out as a family. I clenched my jaw. She had plenty of chances to do the right thing. She never did. The call ended after 5 minutes. Then Olivia's father called. This time, he had an offer. We'll pay you. I waited. $22,000. I almost laughed. You mean $122,000. Silence. We can pay you $2,000 over 6 months. My grip on the phone tightened. My knuckles went white. She stole everything. And your solution is to repay me in crumbs? Dragging this through court won't help anyone, Mason reasoned. You really think I'd accept that deal? A pause. Sometimes we have to forgive family. I let out a slow breath. So, because Olivia was family, she had the right to betray me? To betray our son? And she gets to just walk away? Silence. I hung up, and I was left alone as the family took sides. By the next day, everyone knew. Some were outraged. How could she steal from Noah? What kind of mother spends her child's surgery money on a vacation? Then came the excuses. She's been having a hard time. She was stressed. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They were downplaying it, as if Noah wasn't actually suffering, as if taking away his ability to walk wasn't enough. And then there were the worst ones, the middle grounders. I can see both sides, they said. You're both hurting. Both? Olivia was in Paris, writing about self-care while sipping espresso at a cafe. And I was supposed to see her side? I was done with these people. Through it all, Claire never wavered. She didn't try to soften it. She didn't tell me to let it go. She saw Olivia for who she truly was. I don't care what anyone else says, she reassured me. You're doing the right thing. When I wanted to snap, when I wanted to punch a wall, she kept me focused. And when I told her about Olivia's parents offering me a measly $2,000, she laughed. They know, she said. We kept gathering proof. And Olivia, she kept posting. Living my best life. Sorry, not sorry. Fine. Keep posting, Olivia. Because soon I'd take everything back. And she would lose.